You're listening to BambinoBabble's story. Once upon a time, in a small village, there lived a man called the Pied Piper. He was a tall, thin man with a crooked nose and a mischievous twinkle in his eye. The Pied Piper was a skilled musician, and he had a magical flute that he could play like no one else in the village. The villagers loved to hear the Pied Piper play his flute. His music was so enchanting that people would stop whatever they were doing just to listen to him. He would often play his flute in the village square, and children would flock around him, dancing and laughing. One day, the village was overrun with rats. There were so many rats that they were eating all the food in the village, and the people were getting sick from the rat infestation. The villagers tried everything to get rid of the rats, but nothing worked. Then one day, the Pied Piper came up with a plan. He went to the village leaders and offered to get rid of the rats in exchange for a large sum of money. The village leaders were desperate, so they agreed to pay him. The Pied Piper pulled out his flute and began to play a beautiful tune. The rats were enchanted by the music and started to follow him. He led the rats out of the village and into the nearby river, where they all drowned. The village was rid of the rat infestation, and the people were overjoyed. However, when the Pied Piper went to collect his payment, the village leaders refused to pay him. They claimed that they had not agreed to pay him that much money and offered him a much smaller sum. The Pied Piper was furious. He had worked hard to get rid of the rat infestation, and he felt that he deserved to be paid the agreed-upon amount. He decided to take revenge on the villagers. The next day, the Pied Piper returned to the village, but this time he played a different tune on his flute. The tune was even more enchanting than the one he had played before, and the children of the village were the first to hear it. They followed the Pied Piper as he played his flute, and he led them out of the village and into the nearby mountains. The children didn't realize what was happening, but the adults in the village watched in horror as their children disappeared into the mountains with the Pied Piper. The Pied Piper didn't harm the children, but he did take them away from the village and kept them hidden in a cave in the mountains. The villagers searched high and low for their children but couldn't find them. Years went by, and the Pied Piper never returned to the village. The villagers had given up hope of ever seeing their children again. But then one day, a young boy who had been taken by the Pied Piper returned to the village. He told the villagers about the cave in the mountains where the Pied Piper had kept the children. He said that the Pied Piper had kept them happy and fed for years but had eventually released them when they had grown too old to be of use to him. The villagers were overjoyed to hear that their children were alive and well. They searched for the cave in the mountains and eventually found it. They reunited with their children and brought them back to the village, where they were welcomed with open arms. The village leaders apologized to the Pied Piper and paid him the amount they had promised him years ago. The Pied Piper accepted their apology but refused to play his flute for them ever again. From that day on, the Pied Piper was known as a skilled musician and a vengeful man. The villagers never forgot what he had done, but they also never forgot the enchanting tunes that he had played on his magical